I'm Paul Jensen.
And I'm Paul Donnett.
And today we're going to be talking about
blood and guts. Whenever Paul and I put a good show on, we like to get a good glow on. So today what we have is a nice BC Rosé called Monster. You want to tell us about it, Paul?
Monster is a blend of Pinot Grigio and Merlot. And it's a perfect wine to have for the spring season. Let's get you a little top up here.
I'm going to pretend I haven't already had a bunch. You know, a lot of people think that Rosés and white Zinfandels are the same thing, but of course they're not. Sometimes Rosés can come across as a little more bitter, a little more vinegary, but this has the nice sweetness of a white Zinfandel. You know, it's a very little different. So,
yeah, cheers. Courtesy of Marquis wine.
2 years ago I went to the theater and saw a movie I didn't know what to expect from Indonesian film called The Raid Redemption. At least that was the title it was given here.
I remember you telling me about that, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you recommended it to me, yeah.
So we went in there, and it was the most polarizing movie I've ever been to, because as we're watching this film, people are leaving. People are just walking out one after another because it's just too violent for them. And I'm just like, hoo-hoo! I can't get enough of it. I'm loving every second of it, and the violence is just intense. There's no way that people weren't hurt all over the place with the stunt work. So one of the big films that I've been looking forward to in 2014 is The Raid 2.
The Raid 2 is even more violent, more extreme. Like, it's through the roof, the intensity of it. It's more epic than the first film. You notice the first one was very concise. It was all around that one building, right? And there was a real appeal to that, you know. And this one took a little while to get going at times, but oh my God, does it deliver later on. The gore is through the roof, and you do have to wonder as you're watching it, you know, is there something wrong with me that I enjoy seeing this much blood and guts?
There were scenes in this film that were reminiscent to me of The Midnight Meat Train, which is one of those those little underground, you know, ultra-violent films.
Written by Clive Barker?
There you go. Yeah, one of my favorite. But anyway, yeah, when I saw The Raid 2, I had the same reaction. I thought the first one was violent. This is way more violent. We're using hammers this time. We got baseball bats. We got in, and I just thought, you know, it's funny because when we talk about violence in films, I always have two reactions to violent films. One of them is the 12-year-old me that just can't get enough of the blood and the guts and the, you know, the superhero moves almost and all of that kind of thing. And the other side of me, the older parent, who is, you know, instinctively thinking, well, is this good for me? Is it good for my kids? You know, so it raises the question of, why do we watch violent films?
What I love about the violence, the way it's portrayed in the film, is it's actually a little bit what you call form complementing the content. Because one of the themes in the movie, of course, is how far will a cop go, right, undercover, to do what he has to do. So as the movie kind of escalates and gets more and more intense, because by the end, I mean, it's so over the top, blood flying everywhere, but that's also what is unappealing to the main character. The main character doesn't want to be having to do all this, right? So in a sense, the fact that it's so disturbing works for its story as well.
You've got an individual who, on one level, abhors violence, on another level has been trained to use violence when required. So it's really asking how much do we fight fire with fire? To what degree is it okay or even necessary to use violence in combating violence? And of course that has far-reaching implications for everything from our everyday life to politicians and countries and nations. Look at Syria, we look at Iraq in the past, we look at North Korea. When is it appropriate for us to go in and fight violence with violence?
Yeah, this theme runs through so many great crime stories, so many great films about the thin line between cop and criminal, but between good guy and bad guy, you know, Clint Eastwood's Tightrope, you know, or Heat, or, you know, the extremes that the hero will go to, and you know, they become a little bit like the villain in the end, right? A little bit like the monster, essentially.
My life's a disaster zone because I spend all my time chasing guys like you around the block.
I do what I do best.
I take scores. You do what you do best, trying to stop guys like me.
When I was your age, they would say we could become cops or criminals. What I'm saying is this. When you're facing a loaded gun, what's the difference?
One thing that's interesting I find about the Raid 2 as well is that the action, not only is it's extremely beautifully choreographed, right? The martial arts is just stunning. Like the lead actor is like the next Bruce Lee, right? It's so amazing. It's really an art form. Mm-hmm. But at one point you realize that realism kind of gets thrown out the window because they become a little bit like fantasies. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, realistically, let's face it, somebody would probably pull out a gun and shoot him, you know, as opposed to, you know, how one guy will come in and fight, another guy will come in, as opposed to all at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a celebration of the genre of action film.
They join S.H.I.E.L.D. to protect people.
Captain, to build a better world, sometimes means tearing the old one down.
And that makes enemies.
I was recently watching Captain America, Winter Soldier, and what a remarkable movie. But it is easily Marvel's most violent film. It's very gritty. It's got a bit of that 70s crime feel to it. Mm-hmm. And this is targeted for a young audience, but you know, I remember watching it, my wife when it was over, she was like, do you really think this is appropriate for like an 8-year-old? Because there's just so much intensity in it, so much fighting in it. One of my favorite things about it is that Captain America himself becomes kind of disillusioned with being a soldier. Mm-hmm. And he's the one, like, he's called Captain America, and he's questioning the U.S.'s use of artillery and evoking fear in the world, you know? And he's disenchanted with it.
In a lot of movies, especially involving superheroes or even gun battles, we'll see like 1 million people shooting at each other and like nobody's getting shot. Magically, every bullet is avoiding them. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this one, nope. You know, and that was one of the main criticisms of Captain America, was that it was way too violent to be showing to kids. It is a worthy question to ask how much violence should kids be exposed to, if any. What's the purpose of that? What's the function of that? Is it not only okay, but in some cases, is there value in watching violent films? That's something we should explore. But when it comes to how much violence kids should be exposed to, it's always ironic to me when Christian parents specifically say, kids shouldn't be exposed to violence, but I have no problem reading my 5-year-old the story of this kid who just cut off a giant's head. Which begs the question of how important is context when we deal with violence in film?
It's also interesting to note the difference between cultures. You know, whereas North American culture has a leniency with letting kids watch violence, you know, whereas sexuality is very forbidden. Compared to European culture, I spent 10 years living in Canada, and then I moved to Denmark. They're very strict when it comes to violence in movies. I was 10 years old, and I wanted to go see Beverly Hills Cop. You know, not exactly the most violent movie. And it was rated R in Denmark. I think it was rated 16 years. But I thought, well, I got my mom with me. She'll bring me in.
Eddie Murphy is a Detroit cop.
But when I got to the theater, I was shocked to find out that they wouldn't let me in. The usher was very stern, and I got all upset. I was arguing with the guy. I was like, I've seen everything. I've seen Rambo. I've seen First Blood. I've seen Commando, Schwarzenegger. Come on. And he's like, he turned to my mother and he said to her, there's no way we're letting a little kid see a shot of someone being shot in the head. Like it was so adamant. And the scene he was talking about, it wasn't that graphic. Yeah. It was like from a distance, you know, someone gets shot in the head. But they were very, very strict about that. Yet, they had, in Denmark, they had no problem with kids seeing pornography. I mean, that was on in the middle of the afternoon on television.
Whereas in America, you know, by the time you're 12, you can see 1 million people get killed on TV, but God forbid you see a nipple. It's okay for kids to see violence so long as they understand that the violence was justified, which is a very, very gray zone to get into. You know, when is violence justified?
Once you have a reaction to violence, the violence is actually justified then. I think then filmmakers can go as extreme as they want, you know, so long as they have somebody in the scene reacting the way normal people would react. The really responsible filmmakers, the ones who understand this, they often will balance the extreme moments with bringing it right back down to something that we can identify with. One of my favorites is an old classic David Lean film, the original Oliver Twist, right? And there's a scene where a man is beating a child. But instead of focusing on the beating, they're actually focusing on the child's little puppy, the dog. And the dog is trying to get out of the room because it doesn't like what's happening to its owner, to the little boy. So it's going, oh, 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 trying to get out. And so the dog's a witness to the violence, and we see it through the dog's eyes, and it's painful, you know? So something as innocent as a little dog still understands when someone's being abused or someone's being hurt. It's a powerful scene.
I think there's a scale, we don't talk about the scale, but there's a scale that we tend to use when we're watching violence on TV or in a film. And it's, to me, the scale goes something like this. When it comes to violence perpetrated against men, sky's the limit. We have no problem watching men get the shit beat out of them, tortured, raped, maimed, all kinds of stuff. Men. Women, little less. Children, almost none at all.
Wow, yeah.
Animals, can't be violent towards animals. I think it seems to me that we are willing to watch violence perpetrated against people based on how vulnerable we think they are. But I think there's also a statistic thing in us that kind of has this attitude that, well, men deserve it more too. So we don't mind watching men having violence perpetrated against them. Let me give you a case in point.
Interesting.
Let's talk about rape in two movies. Pulp Fiction, Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. In the first case, we've got a man being raped, very much, well, against his will. That's the definition of rape. And in the Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, it's a woman. What do you have happen in Girl with a Dragon Tattoo? It's a vicious scene. It's hard enough to read in the book. It's extremely difficult for anybody to watch in either the Swedish or the Fincher films.
Yeah, it's unforgettable. It's disturbing.
It's a violation that marks the whole rest of Liz Solander's story in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And of course, when she comes back and gets her revenge on the counselor who did that to us, it's one of the most satisfying. We are entirely on her side when she comes back to get her revenge. But the point is that when a woman is raped in a film, very rightfully, we are outraged, we feel terrible for her, we want to all come to her rescue collectively, and we understand that she may need about 2 or 3 weeks of therapy to get through this terrible thing that she's been through.
Or a lifetime.
When Ving Rhames gets raped in Pulp Fiction, partly because it's a Tarantino film, but partly because this is the kind of the weird double standard we have about this whole thing in society. When he gets raped, he's supposed to stand up and brush it off and go, that was nothing. Give me a shotgun. I'm going to go medieval on this guy's ass. No, guess what? If you had just had that happen to you in real life, you would stand up and you'd be a quivering mess in the corner going, oh. I'm not meaning to make fun of it. But you would be doing what Liz Solander's doing in the shower in Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. But men aren't allowed to do that. Men aren't allowed to do that in movies. Men aren't allowed to do that in real life. Men are supposed to get the shit kicked out of them, all manner of violence perpetrated against them, and stand up and go, that ain't nothing. You know, I can just bounce right back. No, guess what? You can't. And what message does that send little boys as they're growing up, or society in general?
The Corova milk bar sold Milk Plus, which is what we were drinking. This would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of the old ultra-violence.
Clockwork Orange. Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange, right?
Same year as The Exorcist.
Exactly. It came out.
It did.
Unfortunately, there were copycat murders in London. The people that worshipped the movie imitated the killers and went out and killed a bunch of people or caused violence.
I didn't know that.
So Stanley Kubrick, who's notorious for not talking about his movies, for being very secretive and reclusive, he came out and he said, pull my picture, take it out of the theaters. London's not ready for this film yet. He demanded that his movie be censored. And Warner Brothers...
Really?
Yeah. Warner Brothers was making a killing off it.
So to speak.
They said, okay, Stanley Kubrick will pull it. And this is the only time in history a director had more power than the studio. And so for like 20, 30 years, Clockwork Orange was banned in London.
Would you show your kid Clockwork Orange?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Not a boy.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Jesus Christ with Indiana Jones, yes?
That was the first movie to have a PG-13 rating. Spielberg and Lucas wanted to make this next Indiana Jones movie, and they were aiming for kids and PG.
Was it really the first?
Yeah, and it caused so much controversy with the censors. They were like, you can't release this. So they invented a new category, PG-13. I was a babysitter when I was a teenager and there were these two kids I was babysitting, these two brothers. And so I'd babysit them regularly, right? No problem. And then I wanted to introduce them to Indiana Jones. I was all excited, so I put in Raiders of the Lost Ark for them, and we watched it in two halves. Watched the first half and the second half. And then the next day I babysitted. I showed them the first half of Temple of Doom.
You babysitted?
Yes.
You sure about that?
I put in the movie, you know, and then I just kind of watched it with them. Babysat. The next time I came in to show them the second half, their parents were furious at me. The mother went up to me and says, "What the hell did you show them? They had nightmares all night. They had nightmares of people burning and hearts being ripped out." And I'm like, "No, but it was just Indiana Jones."
How old were these kids?
6 and 8.
What the hell is wrong with you, Jensen?
Well, and then they never got to see the second half. And I'm like, "But it ends
Well, no,
happy."
because they're in therapy because you showed them the first half.
At any rate, I guess that's why I got rated PG-13. You know, what about 7?
Okay, we're going to talk about 7?
David Fincher's 7.
We're going to have a little discussion about that?
7.
This one goes out to Tanya Jensen.
Oh.
Her favorite film.
Yeah.
We've got really, I think, one of the most important films ever made with 7. Because it's not just about the violence. To me, there's the typical example of where the violence serves the deeper point. Where you've got 4 very, very different people all reacting to a world that is violent and not what we wish that it was. You know, you've got Brad Pitt, you've got Morgan Freeman, you've got Kevin Spacey's character and Gwyneth Paltrow, and they're like points of a compass. And they all see a world that is going to hell in a handcart and not sure how to deal with it. And they respond to that world in very different ways. One of them by trying to punish it, one of them by wanting to walk away from it in Morgan Freeman's case, one of them young and stupid enough, Brad Pitt, to think he's going to fix it, and Gwyneth Paltrow just doing her best to survive in it. You know, but you've got 4 very different responses to the world.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. With 7, the violence was so fascinating. A lot of people say the movie's so disturbing, right? It's so dark, it's so heavy, it's so gruesome. But we actually don't see any murder on screen. We don't see any of the murders, with the exception of the last one. We see John Doe be killed. And interestingly enough, it's Brad Pitt shooting us. Fincher shoots it. We're the point of view of John Doe.
You just
right?
gave me chills, man.
Yeah, well, that's why it's called John Doe. It could be any one of us, right? But all the other deaths, we don't see the murders. We come in afterwards. So the murders already happened. So what that is psychic violence. It's the kind of violence where we imagine it, right? And we do it to ourselves. You know, we think about the crimes. And that's what John Doe does to his victims. He actually makes them do it to themselves. So, I mean, it's a very self-referential approach to seeing violence on screen. Incredibly sophisticated and intelligent film.
In 1954, we awakened something.
Well, there's nuclear tests in the Pacific. Not tests.
They were trying to kill it.
Gojira! Godzilla. Do you know, like, if you go back to the original, 1954, have you seen the original? Oh my God, Jesus Christ, we have to watch it. Because Gojira is actually a combination of gorilla and whale. Gojira! Well, you know what the original inspiration from? Okay. First of all, Godzilla. Why I'm hoping this new one kind of gets into something deep, because the original was a metaphor. The nuclear war. It was a metaphor for Nagasaki and the fear in Japan of nuclear radiation, right? It was created out of nuclear radiation. It came out of the water. And so there was actually, it was a fishing boat. The Japanese people are out in a fishing boat and they got contaminated by nuclear radiation. So they were contaminated and they came back and they were all freaked out.
I would love to see that. I haven't ever seen that movie. I would love to see that movie.
Let's do it.
Do you have it?
Yes, we can go watch it right now.
You have it here.
Yes, we don't have to forget the show. Let's watch the show.
Let's do it.
Jesus Christ, it's important.
Forget the show. We're
force which, up until a few days ago, was entirely beyond the scope of man's imagination.
This is what George Clooney drinks.
Is it really?
This is like the celebrity stuff. This is like, well, it's a knockoff, actually. It's a knockoff. It's a copy of a copy. But...
so it's not really the stuff that
Not
George
quite.
Clooney.
So what do you think about this Godzilla?
I think it's a pile of shit.
Godzilla! Everyone in Japan loves it.
Well, I'm happy for the people in Japan, don't get me wrong.
I love the people of Japan.
Well, I have no problem with the people in Japan, but the people everywhere else are hating this movie.
They like sushi.
So are you telling me you don't think the new one's going to be better than this? Come on, it's a guy.
Roland Emmerich's wasn't better than this.
It's a guy in a rubber suit stepping on bridges that my kids made.
Where are your kids from?
They're all Japanese, Paul.
I like them. そうですね。はい。どうもありがとう。
Give me the wine. The reason we love monster movies is because they allow us to confront the monster outside of us and the monster inside of us. You know, because we all got a little monster inside.
Check out this guy. Check out this guy.
Holy.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
Look at that guy. He's got like severe superhalitosis. He's blowing up entire buildings with his bad breath. He's like my dad.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good. Let's put him here. You know, I remember going into Kmart. Mm-hmm. You know, Kmart's the department store. I was like 11 or 12, and I wanted the G.I. Joe figures, but I couldn't afford them, so I would steal them.
How old are you?
Here's another one. This guy's got a little guy in the head. I had this whole system. I would go through the store and I go in and I would actually pass and I rip open the packages and the figures would just drop and I'd walk away. But then I would come back an hour later and they were laying there still, like out of the package, and I would just slip them up my sleeve and I'd walk out.
Well, this has been good though. I mean, we got a lot of stuff out here.
What the hell's going on here? Look at this guy. Oh, shit. They keep.
What are you doing?
They keep falling out. What's going on? Hey, trying to get them in there. Okay. All right. So, anyways.
But I think that pretty much wraps it up, Paulie. I don't know about you.
I have one more animal story to tell, remember?
Oh, for fuck's sake.